This lecture will introduce the concept of wisdom literature. Wisdom literature includes the books of Proverbs, Job, Ecclesiastes, certain Psalms, and, depending on how you analyze it, perhaps even Song of Songs. What is unique about the wisdom literature is that these books deal with how to live life on a practical, everyday basis, and how to think about life on a more philosophical plane as well. Much of wisdom is very down to earth. It deals with how to live the good life, how to navigate through life's obstacles and avoid its pitfalls. It instructs us on how to deal with money and sexual temptation, and with laziness and foolishness, with children and spouses. Some wisdom books or writings deal with philosophical, theological issues as why do the wicked prosper, Psalm 73, or why the righteous suffer, the book of Job, or whether there's really meaning to life, the book of Ecclesiastes. Wisdom presents principles for dealing with life both on practical and philosophical levels. These principles, many of which are observable by anybody who looks carefully at life, can help us cope with living, understanding life's meaning, and make us successful and happy. Now, a fundamental principle of the wisdom writings is that God-given principles exist to guide us through life's problems and to bring us success and happiness, that is, the good life. Moreover, these principles are a part of God's order in the universe, or they're kind of built into the way things are, and that the person who carefully observes human behavior will be able to recognize these principles at work. Now, the person that was involved in wisdom writings in ancient Israel would be the sage or the wise man. And Jeremiah happens to refer to this office, as it were, in Jeremiah chapter 18 and verse 18, where he says, they said, "Come, let us make plans against Jeremiah, for the teaching of the law by the priests will not be lost, nor counsel from the wise, nor the word from the prophets. So come, let's attack him with our tongues and pay no attention to anything he says." Now, here it happens to mention three categories of religious leader in ancient Israel: the priests, the wise, and the prophets. The wise then is listed as among the three major religious leaders of ancient Israel in this particular verse, and each had a slightly different function. The purpose of the sage was to give counsel on how to give life. The purpose of a prophet was to give revelation from God. The purpose of a priest was to teach the revelation in God's law. So sages give counsel on how to live life, or the wise man gives counsel on how to live life. Now, how does wisdom books differ from the rest of the Old Testament? Well, you might say that the rest of the Old Testament emphasizes the need for believers to trust and obey. You might think of the Ten Commandments, where you shall do certain things and you shall not do certain other things. That's a trust and obey type thing. But the wisdom writings tell us how to think and teach us to think hard, to observe keeping our eyes open, to use our conscience and our common sense, and not to shirk from even the most disturbing of questions. In this way, the wisdom writings complement and balance out the rest of the Bible. Wisdom books show us that individuals are important. Other books of the Bible often emphasize Israel as a corporate whole. Wisdom books emphasize God as creator, whereas much of the rest of the Bible emphasizes God as redeemer. Wisdom books assume that all humanity, and not just Israel, can discern practical truths from God. As a matter of fact, when we get to Proverbs, we'll argue that some of the Proverbs were borrowed from non-Israelites. Wisdom gives us practical lessons on how to live life. It brings, you might say, secular matters under the rubric of religion. The wisdom books are intellectually probing. They show us that asking questions is not contrary to biblical faith, as they ask questions like, why do the righteous suffer? Why do the wicked prosper? What gives life meaning? Now, there are different types of wisdom writings. There's the basic wisdom. You might, putting it in academic terms, say this is Wisdom 101, freshman level wisdom. And the book of Proverbs would be an example of that. It gives basic concepts of wisdom for young people, as we'll see when we talk about Proverbs. But then there's reflexive wisdom. This is more advanced, more philosophical in orientation. And you get that in the book of Job, which is dealing with the question of why do the righteous suffer. And the book of Ecclesiastes, which deals with questions of faith and skepticism and meaning. And depending on how you want to categorize Song of Songs, if you want to say that there's a wisdom element in Song of Songs, then you might call this romantic wisdom. It's certainly a celebration of romantic love, and it gives some advice as in that area. And so in that regard, one might regard it as a wisdom book of sorts, though it's rather different than the other wisdom books of the Bible. Others would like to just have a separate category as love songs. So God's wisdom is given to us in order to get us safely down the road of life. And we will continue our discussion of the poetical books in the next video.